Living a life in full is a conversation you always wanted to have with that person who gave an amazing TED Talk, or the author of one of your favorite books, or that inspirational Olympian you always wanted to know more about. It's graduate-level conversations with those making a difference in the world and in the lives of others. This show brings you new ideas and approaches so that you can live a life in full. I'm your host, Dr. Chris Stout, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome to another episode of Living a Life in Full. I'm Dr. Chris Stout, your host, and today's episode is brought to you by the ATI Foundation. ATI Physical Therapy's philanthropic efforts extend their commitment to quality care outside clinic walls by giving back to communities. They touch the lives of thousands of people each year through their ATI Foundation. The ATI Foundation is an independent 501c3 charitable organization that gives help and hope to children with physical impairments. Since 2003, the foundation has raised over $4 million to assist children with physical impairments in our communities. Often, the beneficiary families have mounting debt and are overcome by financial and physical obstacles. Through the work of the clinical and corporate team members, they raise funds to purchase medical equipment, pay medical bills, remodel families' homes to accommodate their child's special needs. But more importantly, they give families hope by offering a better quality of life for their child. To learn more about the foundation and ATI, please visit atipt.com. Welcome, everybody. This is an experiment. This is the first Living a Life in Full live broadcast on Facebook, so welcome. I'm very excited. I'm your host, Dr. Chris Stout, and I'm here with Dylan Bates from ATI and Matt Smith, also from ATI. If you don't know, Dylan is the Chief Executive Officer of ATI Physical Therapy, and Matt is Senior Vice President of Growth and Development for ATI's Western region. And they're both embarking on a two-pronged challenge. Number one is to summit Mount Kilimanjaro, the tallest mountain on the African continent and one of the 7 summits. And using this as a fund and awareness raiser for the ATI Foundation, they have a $1 million target. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks, Chris.
I want to do at least 2 deep dives on this episode. I want to talk about the climb, and I want to talk about the cause. But before we get into that, I want to also get to know you guys a little bit better, and our audience to get to know you a little bit better. So I want to hear about your origin stories. Dylan, I'm going to start with you. You started at UW-La Crosse as a graduate in physical therapy, and now you're the CEO of the largest single-brand physical therapy, sports medicine, orthopedic rehab, workers' comp company in the world, with clinics coast to coast. And as of whatever time it is right now, how many do we have?
I think the number is close to 790.
Amazing.
So it's pretty wild.
That is incredible. So take us on that journey. How do you go from UW-La Crosse to pushing 800 clinics nationwide?
Yeah, so I enjoy telling the story. I always somewhat had an entrepreneurial spirit. Grew up in Southern Illinois, down in Carbondale. Small town. Actually started a landscape business when I was 15. Might have been driving my dad's truck when I had a permit, not a full license. Don't tell anybody. Yes, we're on Facebook Live.
Too late.
But so, I always kind of had a zest to go out and make things happen. Competitor, athlete, by background. Played basketball and baseball growing up. I got to play both in college. Got recruited to play basketball actually at University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. Okay. Actually had a pretty significant set of injuries growing up, and so had some great physical therapists, and it piqued my interest, and so I wanted to combo continuing to play sports as well as pursuing physical therapy, and so UW-La Crosse offered both. Ended up there, had a great experience, great physical therapy program, and got done with school and moved to the big city of Chicago. Kind of wanted to start my own thing, but realized pretty quickly you need money. You need to know doctors, and you need to kind of get a lay of the land and get your feet under you. And so I ended up taking a staff physical therapist job with ATI. In
Your first job,
clinic.
right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So actually worked for a stint as a private physical therapist for an author. Actually did some traveling, pretty cool, and then had to get a real job a few months afterwards. And so I answered an ad in the Chicago Tribune, old school style with the classified section.
Wow.
Hard copy newspaper. I was at an Einstein bagel shop in Wrigleyville, and Found this small little ad for a staff therapist job in Willowbrook, Illinois, at ATI. And so I walked in, and Greg Steele is the founder of ATI, and there was just this palpable energy in that building. It was primarily a workers' comp clientele, and it was just very positive, good energy. Patient-to-patient interaction was solid, and Greg had set a really nice tone. I said, hey, almost from minute one, I'd love to be a part of this thing. And
Wow.
so I started there, and we just had the mantra and the internal challenge of lighting people up every day. Be the bright spot. People are coming to us. They're banged up, they're in pain, they're in a time of need, and so we owed it to them to make it a special part of their day in an otherwise pretty tough time. And so we had a lot of great success, a lot of very loyal customers. We didn't have a marketing team, we didn't have a sales team. Our patients
You guys were it, right?
our advocates, and they were out telling the story, and had the opportunity about 6 months after I started in Willowbrook to go open our second clinic ever. And it became a really special place. It's a big, small town, Joliet, Illinois. Mm-hmm. Word of mouth really matters. Blue-collar town. And I remember distinctly, it was December 11th, year 2000, which is the first day of operations down in Joliet. And remember my first patient. And
no kidding. Wow.
It was just a really special experience to be able to set the tone from day one. And we hired a number of awesome clinicians that came on board that became leaders of future clinics, and over the years put down a lot of infrastructure and I think some pretty good strategy in terms of what other folks were doing in the industry. We tried to take it up a notch and take it to the next level, and it created opportunities for so many hard-charging, really top-notch professionals that were drawn to the culture that we were creating. And mm-hmm. We got some funding along the way with a couple private equity transactions, and so they invest in a number of businesses, and they've got experience in terms of when to make certain investments and lay down the right infrastructure to be able to actually get better as you get bigger. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that doesn't always happen.
Sure.
Companies
you lose the secret sauce.
Watered down. And so we made a really, very specific effort to ensure that we stayed the course in terms of what made us special at Clinic One. How do we replicate that time and time again? And I think we've done a pretty darn good job, and I'm blessed to, lead the organization, but I'm one of hundreds of leaders. We've got clinic directors every day that open the door of their clinic and set the tone, and we take care of, over 23,000 patients a day.
Unbelievable.
Wow. And there's about 70,000 active patients that say they're, going to ATI right now in some sort of course of care. And so the influence that we have is pretty big, and we take that very serious, and it's a very special organic story how it's happened, and I just feel really fortunate to be a part of it.
That's fantastic. Wow. And I think we'll circle back, to some of the other kinds of leadership things as well too.
Yeah.
So that's great. So Matt, you were in a little bit warmer climate. You graduated also in physical therapy, but from University of Utah. So catch us up since graduation day.
That was 1984, so I'm dating myself here. Wanted to get out of this. I'd lived my entire life in the cold and the snow in northern Utah and Salt Lake, and so it was time for me to get out of the cold and the snow. Lived in Japan for a couple of years up on the northern island of Hokkaido,
Wow.
which is close to Siberia, and actually I got more cold and snow than I ever did in Utah. So I was anxious to
Wow.
graduate and head south, was headed to Southern California. But I was broke, and my sister lived in Vegas, so I decided to stay there. Place to stay and eat for free for the summer.
Perfect.
And then Vegas was just taking off in the 80s, and so if you wanted to work hard and put the time in, you could be successful. So I was blessed to hit a city on a real growth trajectory, and worked for a company for. Actually, I was with them about 18 months, and I was the director of rehab at a hospital. And a spine surgeon called me down to the OR one day, and I was frightened. Bob Berry, I remember it to this day. And so I thought I was in big trouble. And he said, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I'm the director of rehab. And he said, no, I want you to quit. We're going to build a big spine clinic. I want you to come in and take over all the spine, rehab and set programs up. Not as an employee, so that was 18 months out. I put together a company, and so that was my foray into private practice.
Gosh.
About 18 months out of PT
See
school.
one, do one, teach one.
Yeah, sold a couple clinics in 1995 during the feeding frenzy of M&A. A few years later, ended up being the president and CEO of the Sahara Hotel and Casino, which is
Logical career move.
yeah, very logical.
No
career move.
landscaping in your background, though?
So I quickly learned gaming, food and beverage, hotel management, and so I did that for a couple of years. But you're working day shift and graveyard and swing, and it takes the life out of you. And it's a business that's about taking from people. You're not giving anything away. Mm-hmm. Whereas in healthcare, it's just the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking care of people. It's a business of giving, hopefully. Mm-hmm. So after 2 years, I wanted to get back into healthcare, and so started up again in January of 2000, and then built that until I met Dylan Bates in ATI in 2015. March 20th is when we consummated our deal and relationship, and it's been a grand time associating with a great company and great people.
That's great. And rumor has it that you've also been referred to as the unofficial mayor of Las Vegas?
Well, I think that may be coming from Dylan Bates. What that means is I've been there a long time, and I've had the opportunity to take care of a lot of professional athletes and entertainers and executives, and so that's afforded me, some great opportunities. And so I guess I'm not sure what being mayor means, but it means I've been there a long time, and I know a lot to people.
You've made your mark.
Yeah, that's right. People know you.
guess,
You've done well.
guess.
You've done good. So
guess. Thank
that's
you.
good. So, Matt, to stay with you, you were really kind of the spark for this idea. And as I understand it, you sort of have this habit or tradition on like your big birthdays, on birthdays with fives or zeros, that you want to have a big celebration. Tell us, before we get into the Kilimanjaro, when did that start? How did that start?
You mean just the Kilimanjaro specifically?
No, the fives and the zeros making a big bigger deal.
Well, good question. I think probably my wife and I, just years ago, we decided, you can celebrate every birthday if you want, but we thought the zeros and the fives were significant milestones. And I like, Dylan calls this the second anniversary of my 30th birthday, which I do appreciate. That's right, Phil.
That is good.
I do appreciate that. 60 doesn't sound so good, but
second anniversary sounds good.
But I've been to Africa a couple times, and it's a special place, as you know. There's no place like it on earth, and to do something special there on my 60th. So I did the biggest bike race in Africa, and when I turned 55.
Wow.
So,
Where was that?
So you start in Cape Town, and it's 105 miles. You go down the Indian Ocean side, then you come up the Atlantic. And I flew down. We had no air conditioning that night. I wanted to get over with because I was headed to the wine country the next day, get my priorities.
Yeah, right.
So I tell you what, I suffered like I've not suffered. It was hot, and you think it's going to be flat down there. Well, it's not. Mm-mm. When you get down by the Cape, you're climbing, and I got a couple flat tires.
Oh, God.
Lost the Peloton a few times, and so I was just set out there by myself with that hot wind coming in. And anyway, I was miserable, just miserable.
Yeah.
So that said, Africa is a special place, and Kilimanjaro is the highest freestanding peak in the world, highest peak in all of Africa. And so I told my wife that I wanted to, I said, are you okay if I'm gone for my 60th birthday? And she wasn't happy. But when I told her what it was, she was like, that is really cool. So yeah, she's been very supportive, and so I had to rally some friends and family to help me up this thing, and so mentioned it to Dylan and another gentleman, John Nelson, who's going to go with us, and they didn't hesitate. They said, let's do this thing. So it was about a year ago in Telluride, maybe.
Yeah.
Right? Does that sound right?
Yeah.
We talked about it, and Dylan had an ankle, about this big,
I was wondering, is this part of your rehab program that Matt prescribed?
Yeah, yeah.
Dylan, you know what
I don't know
that
if
ankle
I
needs?
don't know if he should be treating anyone anymore if that's what he recommends. So, yeah, it's part of the price. This is hopefully the capstone on the rehab.
All right.
So,
Awesome.
1 year.
That's
1 year later.
Isn't that amazing? So now let's segue in. I just as a bit of background, I like to climb. I've kind of semi-retired from that, so I tip my hat to both you guys with this. But one of the things that I always felt like with climbs was that the training process, so you guys are a little bit of an exception to this of doing things together, but I always found like I was kind of training by myself. And like you this morning, you're up at the crack of dawn, you're hammering it, you're doing what you can to get done and ready. Work and travel can kind of get in the way of that, make it a bit more of a challenge, and the workout sometimes a little bit harder. But I also felt like, I'm kind of, you do it with a team, you do it with an expedition group, so that's good and camaraderie. But a lot of the training, and really for you yourself, it's an individual kind of thing. And way back when I was doing these climbs, it sort of occurred to me that I should sponsor something, or I should do something about it, because it's all me, 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 me. So just speaking to myself, so we started something called Summits for Others. So we would do these climbs and we would sponsor things. And the idea then for Klimb-4-Kids, tell us about the genesis of that, because it sounds like it might be a somewhat of a parallel, or how did that
Yeah, I think it's spot on. The ATI Foundation, we've had it going since 2003. Started with very humble beginnings. It was a 5K in Joliet, Illinois, I mentioned earlier, a special community in the history of, ATI physical therapy. We were seeing so many families come in with children that had physical impairments, and the community had been very good to us. And we said, hey, there was one individual child, pediatric cancer, and we, he was the beneficiary of our first event. And we said, hey, let's make this a real foundation. And so in 2003, we started it. Got off to, just a real basic start. But over the last few years, it's really picked up steam. 2017 was the first year that we went over $1 million raised.
Fantastic.
And so when, to your point about training, first couple weeks, it does get a little lonely, and you sit there and say, all right, why am I doing this? Well, number one, I'm doing it to support my guy in his second anniversary of his 30th birthday. And we said, I can't remember exactly where I was, but I said, boy, let's pull the foundation of this thing, and let's tie a dollar figure or a penny or 10 cents or whatever per foot of elevation. And so I ran it past Matt, and he said, heck yeah, let's make it happen. And so we ended up pulling the marketing team and the foundation crew in my office, and the name Klimb-4-Kids came about, and it just started developing from there. And then I can tell you, as I've been training, and we've actually had some great training together in the mountains out in Colorado, we've been talking about it, that the highest I've ever gone is just under 14,000 feet out in the Telluride region. But to go another 5,000, almost 500 more on top of that it's a big deal. And so just, I think, having some of the extra motivation, knowing that there's a lot riding on it. The fundraising so far is going great. And I think the $1 million number, while it's a big goal, I do think it's attainable. And I love to see our clinics getting after it, and the enthusiasm, the creativity, and the just efforts that we're seeing roll in are really special. And so even in our training, we were talking about how that's just this extra layer of motivation that's pretty cool.
That's fantastic. How about for you, Matt?
Regarding
just the experience and the making it something like you've had your birthday aspect of it and doing something special, and then adding this extra component of foundation support. And
well, Dylan brought it up, and I said it's a great idea. And of course, we all know Dylan. He does things in a big way. It's
no
not,
half measures.
Yeah, no. It's actually, I think, much bigger than I had anticipated when we first talked about it. So yeah, we're in full mode right now, trying to get as much money as we can. Not just before, but we want this thing to carry on even after that.
The foundation will live on, and there'll be other climbs after this. I can't wait to hear what that's going to be.
Yeah, we already said we might need to pick a big thing every year. So,
well, I think the aspect of that in terms of this initial early interest and great early success is also speaks to other people's, getting it and appreciating, what it takes to do that, and appreciating then what the good that those dollars go to do.
Yeah.
I mean, from 5Ks to Kilimanjaro is really, an impressive kind of thing. So I think you've captured a lot of people's imaginations with it. Because I'm a kind of a OCD quant kind of guy, I wanted to tell you, in case you didn't already know this, or our listeners and viewers can see this, it's around 62 miles round trip. And the old classic thing in climbing is when you've made the summit, you're halfway done.
Yeah.
So you always got to get back safe. Back in the Cro-Magnon era, when dinosaurs were still walking around there, when I climbed it, one of the fascinating things is just you go through all these ecosystems. I mean, it's sort of like it was, like 80s at the bottom, and then starts to get cooled off, and then kind of gets to be tundra, and then it's like sub-zero Fahrenheit, when you're at the summit. And I think that makes a very interesting kind of aspect to the climb, whereas other places it's always cold or it's always whatever. And to put it in context, we're in Chicago today doing this downtown. And the tallest building here is the Willis Tower. And if you were to take the number of Willis Towers and stack them on top of one another to hit the summit of Kilimanjaro, it would take 13 and a half Willis Towers to do that.
Yeah.
So from flatland to Kilimanjaro is what that would be. So,
Yep.
yeah. So do you guys have a climbing background? You said you've been 14,000 feet, but is this first one of 7 summits, the first big deal summit, or what's your
first
resume?
big one for me. Like I said earlier, I think I've been scaring 14,000 on some hikes, just day hikes, 4 or 5 hours out in Colorado. But yeah, this will be the first, real climb, getting to 19,341. So, a little nervous, but I think we're doing the right things, taking it very serious. And looking forward to putting in the work so that hopefully come time to be on the mountain, we're well prepared.
That's good. How about you?
Yeah, no, my background is in cycling, so bike raced many years. I bike raced in Russia. I've never climbed or hiked much at all, other than at my mom's in Wyoming. So I've been to 11,000. In cycling, it's basically a non-weight bearing sport, and so I have the aches and pains of back and hip and knee and ankle, but the training's been phenomenal. This is something I will now adopt and be part of my exercise program, because I always used to kind of laugh at hikers, but now I really truly appreciate the hiking, the climbing, and the fitness that you get from it. It's amazing.
Carrying a pack and whatnot. So.
I hope it's not a sign, by the way. We hear some background silence going on downtown Chicago. We're talking about being prepared for this climb. So for those listening, I apologize for the background
Sorry
noise.
about that.
But
So it's real and it's
Hopefully
live.
that's not an omen, right?
that's right.
So what's the coldest you guys have been to? So 14, 11 for height, but what coldest temperatures have you got, other than Chicago maybe this morning?
We were hiking, 2 weeks ago in Colorado, and it was sub-zero, and we've listened to the right type of gear to get, and I think we're all decked out, and so I think we are prepared to go from 80s to sub-zero. So
it is. That's just so critical. So you both have families. What do they think about this? I mean, you said your wife is in support of it, but is there, I used to climb internationally until we had kids. My wife said, "Well, you're not climbing internationally anymore." So I'm sort of envious that you get the support from your wife to be able to go do this. But what's it like for you guys with families and kids?
Yeah, my wife's been incredibly supportive. It's hard to get motivated to stay in shape just going to the gym and jumping on a treadmill or what have you. So she likes the fact that I'm getting in great shape. My kids are intrigued. My 8-year-old knows enough about Google and how to look up stuff. So he saw a couple articles that got him a little scared. Things happen on mountains, but overall they're very intrigued and supportive and excited about it. So
that's good.
I don't think they really understand what it is, but they're.
Well, if you have the time after you do it, then come back and give a talk at your kid's school. That's an awesome, fun thing to do. So, how about for you, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, my wife's she's great. She's an athlete. She would do it, but she's got pretty bad osteoarthritis in her knee. But she was Nevada Athlete of the Year in high school years ago. So so she likes challenges, and she's excited. She's actually going to fly in on the 20th when we when we come back to the bottom. So she's going to fly in. We'll do a little safari.
Nice. Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
safari for 4 days and see if we can find some African game out there in Tanzania.
Oh, that'll be perfect. Well, good for you. Oh, that's
And my
fantastic.
kids just think Dad's doing another dumb thing in his life. Which
they
won't be the
didn't
last.
volunteer to come climb or anything. So, I guess just to maybe our public service announcement with this sort of a thing. Like, have you guys been reading up on acute mountain sickness and HAPE and HACE and those kinds of things? So,
Yeah.
when I did it, there was a French expedition team, and we were at 16,000, the last kind of like base campy kind of thing, and someone got sick. And it's sort of like, I've not experienced this by virtue of a person, but by virtue of hearing stories, that it's really, you can be very, very fit, but acclimatization is a random thing. And some people have climbed Mountain X and been fine and been in great shape, climbed it again 2 years later, and gotten hit by something. So, are you aware of Diamox?
We are.
I highly recommend Diamox. Next to caffeine is my drug of choice.
We did a little test drive actually a couple weeks ago when we were training.
Excellent.
So no real side effects. I hear it can definitely help.
Yeah. I've never done any altitude stuff without it, so I can't give a comparison or anything. But I mean, it's just I've had like dull headaches, and you just it's hard to sleep at 16,000 feet under whatever circumstances. But it's just I highly recommend it, and
Yep.
downside of side effects isn't such a big deal. So I also highly recommend, and maybe you guys already thought about these kinds of things, but the American Alpine Club has they will come helicopter you out of a place, if need be. So I always, give a plug to the American Alpine Club because they're really, excellent with evacs. But you guys are part of an expedition team, though, right? So tell us a little bit about that. How does that work?
So there are 10 of us. There'll be a gentleman from Nashville, 3 from Chicago, and then 6 from Las Vegas. And not that I planned on having doctors along, but 3 of my good friends who accepted the Challenger physicians. So
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt.
So needless to say, we've had a lot of discussions about medications and what to take, and Diamox, and other
And you
challenges.
complaining of this, you've been getting shots and stuff too. So tell us about getting ready and
vaccinations,
all the fun travel meds and shots and
typhoid, yellow fever. Actually, nothing's required in Tanzania, but I think you want your Hep A,
darn good
typhoid,
idea. Yeah.
Yellow fever, get a flu vaccination.
Yeah.
What else? I think, and then if you're worried about malaria, you can take Malaron, which I think you start maybe 2 days before and finish 2 days after. Mm-hmm. I've been twice. I've not taken Malaron, but I might, just because I don't want to get
sick.
Yeah, one of the physicians, Dr. McKenna, he landed in Kilimanjaro and got like 3 mosquito bites as he was going to get his luggage. So I'm like, so it does give me pause. But I think that that covers most of the vaccination.
It's just smart. I mean, it's just because you got enough stuff and physical challenges and whatnot that last thing you need to worry about is getting sick by virtue of 3 mosquito bites right off the bat kind of thing. So training wise, maybe step us through. Dylan, you had made mention before we started recording that you've been losing some weight, but what kinds of, is there a stand, and you said you're going to keep to your exercise regimen, but even though you've been like a cyclist, so what have you guys done to tweak your exercise, tweak your diet?
Yeah, I've just stepped up cardio big time. A lot of incline treadmill work. I've got a 36-liter pack, kind of a day pack that we'll take. I've been loaded up with 20 to 30 pounds and going for an hour at 15 degrees incline and catching up on some TV shows along the way because it's hard to stay focused when you're on the treadmill for an hour.
Other than how bad it feels.
But yeah, just eating clean. A lot of salads, a lot of good, healthy, lean proteins, and definitely drop some pounds and feeling lean and feeling strong. So
excellent.
Just got to keep it up.
That's good. How about for you, Matt?
Well, fortunately, Vegas isn't known for its world-class climbing. We have other things that occupy your time on the Strip. However, living there, so we can get up to 12,000 feet up on Mount Charleston. Today it's 76 in Vegas. I mean, it's gorgeous right now. Mm-hmm. So, we can go out for I mean, Mount Charleston's 18 miles. We've done that a few times. So 10 minutes 15 minutes from where we live, we can be up, doing a 3,000 foot up and down climb, and back home by 10 or 11.
It's a little more than the Midwest.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow, I had no idea. I think that's fantastic.
Vegas has got world class climbing. It's in fact, you'll see a lot of the Europeans will come over and spend winters in Vegas just because
for that.
Yeah, it's probably the top 3 or 4 places in the world, actually.
I remember years ago I went to Vegas and then drove through like where they run Badwater and then did Whitney. And it was sort of like, going from the lowest to the highest. Is like, again, ecosystems and things like that. But I didn't realize you could do that so close. That's fantastic. So, what's our countdown? When do you leave?
Dylan departs Chicago on the 10th. I depart Vegas, and so we'll see him in Amsterdam to catch the flight down. There's that one flight, as you know, Chris, that takes you down.
And I'll make sure that because we were going to see each other in Amsterdam, I'm going to make sure he gets on the plane to Kilimanjaro. And that we don't stay there too long.
Chaperoning, so that's good.
That's
good. Well, fortunately, I've been there a couple of times. So.
Well, I tell you, again, dating the million years ago that I did it, there was no international airport in Kilimanjaro. Yeah. So I flew into Kenya, into Nairobi, and then went down what used to be this horrible stretch where they knew that, like, nefarious fellows there knew that climbers with lots of gear and whatever were making it, and they would, you're like in the frickin' Serengeti, and they would like throw stuff around, and your bus would stop, and then you go to get the stuff out, and then they would come and hit you in the back of the head and take your pack or whatever, and kind of end of your climb. And that became, over time in the early 90s, became too much work, so they would just like shoot at the buses because that was much easier to do, to hit a tire, cause someone to stop. So it's sort of like the anxiety of kind of just going from Nairobi to getting to the Moshi region and stuff, and the base, is also kind of like this. Your adrenaline was up before you even set foot on the mountain. So yeah. So I want to kind of start to wrap up. We actually have some listener questions, so I thought it was fun. We'll get engaged with folks. So these are from our audience. For both of you, what are you most nervous about, if anything?
I think you said it earlier. You can be really prepared. You can be in shape, and you can get sick. And I think we've all talked, there's a competitive group of guys, but when someone gets sick, there's only so much encouragement and or, giving someone a hard time. It's just, it's something you can't really push through if you have real symptoms of mountain sickness. So it's something that we've committed to each other, that we'll watch out for each other. And it's always nervous that you do all the training, and we've got a lot riding on it with the foundation dollars we're raising. You want to get to the top, you want to be really smart and safe too.
That's right.
Yeah, I agree with Dylan 100%. It's what happens at 13,000, 15,000 feet that there's world class triathletes that have not made it to the top because they get into trouble. So we're going to be smart about Diamox and lots of water. Mm-hmm. I think that's my biggest concern, is just, myself and all of us making it to the top.
Yeah, and it's really, one of the things that I've learned is just, honestly, slow and steady wins the race kind of a thing. And there's sort of like I don't know if you guys have talked about this, but almost like what they call like muffler breathing, where you kind of create a back pressure when you exhale, and it helps keep more air in your lungs. And, seeing tips and tricks and hacks like that, I found, super helpful. So one of the things I also want to give you guys, since we're doing our first video, when I'm going to give gifts and whatnot. This is my Swahili phrase book from circa 1992.
Nice.
So if you guys ever find yourself in trouble, and Matt was reading this earlier of how to summon a doctor. So those are good phrases to get to learn. So,
right.
I like this. enjoy yourself with that. And we'll be looking forward to a follow-up. We need to do a follow-up to hear about post, and we can do it all in Swahili.
Find the cold beer at the finish line.
You're right, exactly.
Amen. And Chris, by the way, we're going up the Mashame route, and I know there's 11-day, there's 9-day Lamosho, and so Epic is who we're going with. And I found them on a Departures magazine, which is an American Express magazine, and as we get older, we like the best comforts that we can find. So I think we have the best outfitter to give us great food, thicker mattresses at night, full kitchen, bathroom set up.
Nice.
Everything that we're going to have. But I chose this route because we've got CEOs, we've got busy people, physicians, without getting too crazy. So it'll be 6 nights, 7 days, round trip, which it has a success rate of about 66% is what I've read. So we're going to try and go 10 for 10 and getting up to the top here.
Excellent, excellent. So obviously this is our first experiment with video. Are you guys going to shoot video when you're going, or any plans on any photo documentation or documentaries or anything like that?
I was just showing Dylan this morning, there's a gentleman in Vegas who hikes and climbs, and you can get these drones now that will follow you. It's really a cool thing. Yeah, if you see so you just hike and climb, and this drone will actually, it follows you along like your dog would.
That's crazy.
Yeah, we'll be doing that, and then we have a couple of GoPros.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have a couple GoPros that so we'll have plenty of stuff to edit and look at when we finish.
Are you guys like a sat phone or any kind of way, because all that will be fine once you get back. I'm just wondering if there's any live stuff or options for.
I'm not sure on that. Do you know?
Yeah, we have. Well, we're taking a sat phone. There's a friend of mine in Vegas who does Bhutan and all these crazy long climbs and hikes. So we're just going to get a SIM card and take a sat phone up and.
Crazy.
Order a cappuccino from Starbucks at the top, and hopefully it'll pair.
That's excellent. Well, we'll post those on our websites and on Facebook as well too. So we talked about altitude sickness, duration of training. I guess obviously up until the day you climb. But when did you guys start your training in earnest for specific? I know you guys are always in shape, but not necessarily for climbing. So how long ago did you start?
I'd say we kicked it off in October. We met in Colorado for 5 days. Did probably 60 miles over that time period. And I think that was probably the time when I locked in and said, all right, this is real and got to get moving.
That's awesome. Okay. And so same with you, like October-ish? Okay. That's good. A person asks, are there smaller mountains that are needed for preliminary climbs? So it sounds like you guys have incorporated some of that in your training, right?
Yeah, yeah. I've done a number of, real hikes in Colorado, multiple hours and multiple miles in a day, some real vertical, elevation covered. So I think we're doing the right things. We have a couple folks from Chicago that have not really gone to altitude yet. So
Yikes.
they've got to get moving.
They got to get up to the Willis
Tower. If you're
Tower,
watching, you know who you are. So let's go, boys.
Therapeutic shaming, so that's good. So
Mark and Fletch.
Anyway, how many participants, which you've already discussed, and then they also ask about Sherpas, which I know in Kilimanjaro would be porters, will be on the trip. Do you know what your team, your crew will be like?
Well, it's one of the reasons we picked Epic. I think it's going to be like 2 to 1, so we should probably have maybe 20 porters. But
great.
So we have our day packs, right? But we'll I think we've got a. Ours is
36.
36, yeah. So that's you're carrying your day stuff, rain gear for the day. And then, as you know, the porters have these big bags. They carry them on their heads. It's unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
So we'll have our duffel bag, waterproof, that'll have our other stuff. So we're switching in and out depending on, you're in this tropical zone. We're in Lululemon, and then you're at the very top in about 4 layers.
You own, yeah.
Yeah. And a balaclava and trying to stay out of the frost.
Yeah. But, at least at the lower, I remember a lot of the porters just wearing flip-flops.
Yeah.
It was just like unbelievable.
Flip-flops,
and their 5,000th summit, attempt or something.
Yep.
So tell us again, how long does it take to get up? You're doing how many days up?
It's 6 nights, 7 days.
6 nights, okay.
Yep, and there'll be 1 night on the way down, so it's 5 nights on the way up.
Gotcha.
And then we climb high and sleep low as just to acclimatize.
Yeah.
Just before the final.
So, how many hours per day do you have? Someone is curious about duration during those days.
First
Probably
day,
varies,
I think we go up to 9,000. That's going to be, I think, our longest day. That's going to be about 8 hours in the boots. And then we'll have days where we're done at 1:30 in the afternoon. So it just depends on the day. But longest day, I think, is day 1.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, and then. Once you're at the summit, then tell us about the descent and like do you know what altitude and how many hours that is?
We'll camp at over 15, and then we get up at midnight. So there won't be much sleep that night. So we take off at midnight. You're up there at sunrise. There's a big glacier up there. I don't know what condition it's going to be in. There's been a ton of snow as we've gotten some of these live feeds. There's been a ton of snow. It's summer over there right now. So we're actually taking some gear to strap onto our boots for ice and snow.
Wow.
Should we get that? But so we'll be going on just the edge of summer, fall, in March. But you don't know on top of the mountain. It could it could be snowing and it could be beautiful and the sun shining.
I remember our summit morning that I had. This is again the old school. I had a canteen. And I had to put it like inside all my layers, otherwise it would start to freeze. It's just like, then you have all these thoughts like, I wonder if my eyeballs could freeze. I wonder if,
Yeah, no, so, you have to have an insulated tube
right,
on your camelback because it will freeze.
Yeah.
So we hit that, and then we come back down, we load all of our stuff, and then we'll head back down, probably right back down to 9,000 feet. There's 2 camps that we have options on. It's set up at 9,000. Then we'll finish off the next morning, and that's it.
And go find that beer.
Go find that beer.
Right. So, with your looking at the weather, do you know what the temperatures have been lately at Summit? Does it say on where have you been checking out?
Yeah, it's been unusually cold and snowy up there. So they've had some 0 - 10 degree mornings. Up there.
Yeah, you don't hang out there a whole lot.
Yeah.
You kind of tag, get the photos, and get going on the second half.
We've got our foundation flags and
really?
a couple other flags that we're going to do some photo ops. So
excellent.
We'll have to get them out quick and
get the
keep
shots
moving
and get down.
Yeah.
So you said how much is the weight of the gear that you guys will be lugging up? 30 some odd?
Oh, I don't know. What do you think? 15, 20 pounds a day? No more probably, as the porters will be taking the rest.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And what kind of food when you're on it? Do you know what the diet will be
Steak,
like?
Seafood. No.
Fresh lobster.
I don't know. He keeps talking up this guide company, so it looks pretty nice though.
Good.
So we won't. I don't think it'll be north of roughing it.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
I've heard good things about the food.
All right, good. And again, I think it's maybe an individual difference, but I would just find that I'd lose my appetite, which would just like tick me off so much because I'd have like, my weakness is Snickers. I'd be like, oh, now I can eat my Snickers, and it's like, man, that just sounds miserable,
Yeah.
So it's like once I got down lower, then it was great.
That's my exact go-to food. I'm taking is
Is
Snickers.
that right? Yeah.
Because I know I can always eat a Snickers.
Yeah, that's my feeling too. So that's good. So. The final couple of questions from our audience are kind of I think make an interesting shift. I really, really like them. One person says, I would like to know how you will personally make use of this experience besides helping raise money for the ATI Foundation. How will climbing Mount Kilimanjaro define you? Is this only a big thing on 5s and 10s, or is it the start of something new for you both as ATI continues to grow? That's kind of a deep one there. So.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Yeah, I like it. But I think it's inspired. Like I said, when we put this out there, tying the foundation to it, we just recently equipped the clinics with a bunch of materials, and there's this beautiful panoramic photo. It's, it goes up on the wall, and people buy stickers to, sponsor the climb and so forth. But even before receiving the materials, they were all kind of homegrown, organic ideas, and it was just really inspiring. And as a larger company now, getting messages out about the vision of the organization and trying to get folks to really understand what we're trying to accomplish and to create meaningful rallying points. Sometimes from a corporate office, it doesn't always hit the high notes. But what I've seen with this is that this is something that everyone can understand and get behind, and it's just got a deeper feel to it and a really organic, real, feel-good feel. That's coming throughout the whole organization and beyond. We did some personalized video mailers to, friends of ATI, businesses that work with us, vendors, and just personal friends that have been successful in business. And I had the first 4 contacted me, and I started it, and Matt, quickly joined and said, I'm doing it too. We're kind of starting the fundraising with $19,341, which is the height of Kilimanjaro. And 4 individuals contacted me yesterday and said, I'm matching what you're doing. And so,
Wow.
close to $80,000
Oh,
just with 4
congratulations.
individuals. And so
Wow.
when we think about the $1 million goal,
Yeah.
and it's kind of a long-winded answer to the question, but it's just really, this has inspired me to think about, all right, what's on deck for next year? Because
Yeah.
I think, like I said, it's just a great physical commitment, and it's mentally taxing. It makes you stronger when you get through a tough workout, when you're not feeling the best or whatever it might be. And so I think having a goal each year and tying it to the foundation, something big, physical, feat of sorts, I can see us picking another challenge and potentially in this inspiring other people in ATI to say, hey, I'm going to do something big, and I'm going to tie it also to the foundation. So we've talked a lot about that.
That's great.
So I think this will continue.
Fantastic. How about for you, Matt?
Living in Vegas, it's created some energy and excitement, and I really like it. And I think it, to see the CEO of the company talk about something that's really the genesis of who we are, and that's changing lives and helping people. And too often, I think as a big company, we get caught up in the metrics of business, the charge per visit, visits per patient, units per, et cetera, et cetera. And so sometimes that can fall on deaf ears because you hear it too many times from the same people. This, I think, will resonate with the ops of our company in a way because our focus is not so much on that, but it's helping kids and helping grow our foundation, which I think we have 700 kids a year that we assist, but we have another 100 plus in the queue, and we can't do that. We need 200 more kids. We need to help all these kids. So I think this sets the bar for the future, and I can see. I will not be going up Everest with you. So I'm pretty much up for anything. Swimming with sharks in Australia, I'll do that. I'm not going up.
We've got a lot of people that are going to give you some ideas there.
Yeah.
So.
I'm sure, and I'm dumb enough to probably do it. So.
Well, and I think I'm going to kind of paraphrase this last question from our listeners, because I think you've sort of said it in a very meta kind of way, which is, to me, it just makes me think of the ATI spirit.
Yeah.
What ATI is kind of all about. I mean, the aspect, I think we think about the work with clinicians in the clinic with patients, we think about the work of the foundation with needy kids and families, but there's also that interstitial connection between the colleagues at ATI and the inspiration I think you guys give them at large levels and at hands-on in the clinic, shaking hands, talking to patients, talking to staff, and it's just, I think it's very inspirational for people to see that you guys are really kind of walking the talk, that it's not just some cliche or something like that, but this is what the fabric of ATI looks like with doing what you guys are doing. So I really, really applaud you. So I don't want you to steal my thunder with this because I'm thinking about Matt's 65th birthday.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking MMA.
Oh boy! Oh boy!
Right?
I don't know. He's
right,
pretty tough.
MMA.
There we go.
I don't like being punched or kicked.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll have to think of something else. So maybe just in closing then, can you guys talk a little bit about your vision for ATI, healthcare, the foundation, just kind of, from the perspectives that you have with where things are today, vis-a-vis, if you want to speak generalities in healthcare and where things are going, or in particular with ATI and that fit, what do you guys see from the positions you're in?
Yeah, I think physical therapy in general, I think, is in a great spot. I think it's, relatively speaking, in terms of cost versus impact, it's, low cost, the great use of a healthcare dollar. We've done some really compelling work. Frankly, Dr. Stout's been in the middle of a lot of the work, really proving the value prop of physical therapy, and versus expensive surgical procedures, imaging. The opioid epidemic that's going on in this country is very real, and I think we check a lot of the positive boxes to counter some of that's going on. And so I'm bullish on the industry as a whole. I think specific to ATI, I think we're trying to lead the charge. We often say every industry needs a leader, and I think we've been very thoughtful about really aggregating critical mass of leaders that really care about what we're trying to accomplish. We call it emotionally investing in our work. It's part of the ATI way. And, I think sky's the limit. And I'm really excited. We're having a leadership retreat That's why we're downtown Chicago. We're hosting about 130 of our leaders from across the country to set the tone for 2018. And I think we've got some real momentum in the business, and I'm looking forward to the future.
Great, excellent. What's your vision, Matt?
Well, I ditto what Dylan said. 3 years ago, when I was looking at rolling up my company, I had offered some private equity and some VC firms, and probably 3 or 4 of our competitors today, very large companies. So when I made a choice, it was based on a company whose values and culture aligned with mine and my company. I love to tell this story because I do M&A work, and I realize that non-therapists can be CEOs of companies in the PT world, and there are, and they do a good job. But I will say it can't be overstated that our CEO is a PT, our COO, our compliance officer, a PT. We've got our VP of contracting is a PT. There's really just a sense that's a little bit different with our executive team and how we lead the charge and how we feel really the profession, the industry, and how we grow and develop that. I think that makes us unique, and I can't, again, you can't overstate how important that is and the value that brings day to day in the growth of the company. But I love our industry. I love where we're headed. Again, as Dylan said, a lot of the work that you're doing, the data that we see, orthopaths and some of these really cool things that are going to be a paradigm change, I believe, in the next 5 years in our industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very exciting. It's really good to see that. And I think just to echo that, I think the deep bench of leadership, and again, which you guys are, great, poster boys for. I mean, it really speaks to the ethos, the ATI way, and it's just, it's something I think you should be very proud of. It's wonderful. So I'm going to close up today's episode. But before we end, I want you guys, if you can do some shout outs, if people want to learn more about the Klimb, more about the foundation, more about ATI, how they can donate, how they can be a part of it, how they can follow you guys, what are the places in social, or what are the best ways to be able to do that?
Yeah, and before I do that, I want to personally give a shout out to Terry Williams, who's the director of the ATI Foundation. Terry, if you're watching, how are you? But he's just relentless, and he just gets after it every day, and is passionate and a big driver of where the foundation is today compared to our humble beginnings of it. So thank you very much, Terry. But I think the best place to go for info, we have a landing page. It's Klimb-4-Kids.com. Little play on Kilimanjaro. We do know how to spell. But it's actually,
I like the K's.
It's KLIMB, numerical 4, number 4, kids.com. And you can see the ticker going up in terms of how many dollars have been raised, and there's some videos on there. You can be anonymous. You can allocate your donation to said clinic or an individual or what have you. It's a very user-friendly interface to do it online. I think that's probably the most user-friendly place to go.
Okay, awesome, excellent. Well, we'll have show notes for that, and I know that there's also a lot of activity that ATI has on Twitter, so there's a variety of ways that people can engage in social, and obviously with our first experiment with the show being on Facebook Live. We'll also be on iTunes probably next week, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Overcast, YouTube, and LinkedIn, and a variety of other socials. So feel free to share this episode and share the episode as podcast and video once we have it out next week. So I want to thank you guys again. This has just been an awesome experience, and I'm really impressed and proud with the work that you guys are doing, and I can't wait to hear about the Klimb.
Great.
All right.
Great.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Living a Life in Full is a production of Stout Media, a subsidiary of Gordian Knot, LLC. Assistant producer, Gracie Wong. Music, Dan O'Brien. Post-production, Sam Rude. Graphics, Larry Newberry. Executive producer and host, Dr. Chris Stout. To learn more, stop by our website, alifeinfull.org, for show notes. And please recommend us to your friends and leave us a review on iTunes. Thanks.